I'm hoping by now you will have watched the video on emotional boundaries and understood how it is that people use different emotions like anger and guilt and shame to manipulate us and get us to be the version of them that they want us to be. And I want to take that a little bit further now and bring it into a real world example that a client brought to me this morning. So this particular client lives here in Australia and her father is over in Europe, and they have a strained relationship. The father doesn't speak to her husband, doesn't speak to her children, his grandchildren. And yet his way of communicating his arrival was merely to send her a picture of his plane tickets on the assumption that not only am I coming, but I'm staying in your house and you're now going to move everything and shift everything around me to accommodate what I want. Now here's the challenge. This client has taken this very real dilemma out into the world, and she's spoken to her friends about it, and she's spoken to her colleagues about it, and all of the attention and all of the focus has gone where? On the father. Well, I don't know. Should you always have a father in your home or should you not? Are there limits to where the father can push your boundaries and still be received, or are they not? Are there universal or cultural rules that are applicable to whether or not you should always host your father, or are they not? But in any case, all of the focus and all of the attention has gone on the father. Nobody has stopped and said to her, what do you need? What is the effect of having your father in your home? Not just physically in your home, but in your emotional home. How disruptive is that to your own ecosystem, to your own emotionality? What is the real impact of that for you? What do you need? What do you need furthermore to give yourself permission to navigate through this based on what you need? What is it that is in the way of you advocating for yourself and choosing what you need? I think it gets really murky when we have a collective rule for something. So let's look at the role of the father, the archetypal father. The assumption with a universal rule, and let's say in this case the rule might be, yeah, of course, you should always have your father to stay in your home because he's your father. Okay, well, let's look at a father who is emotionally available, who is emotionally literate, who is considerate and compassionate and supportive of you. On a scale of 1 to 10, if that's a 1 and it's in the yummy sweet spot of nurturing you, is that true? Yeah. Great, celebrate it, throw the doors wide open, come on in, daddy, can't wait to see you. Let's move that notch up a little bit, and now let's put dad at about a 5. So he can be kind, but he can also be unkind. He can be considerate and he can be compassionate, but he can also be desperately entitled. He can be generous with the children, but he can also be incredibly mean. What should you do then? Don't know, it comes back to the same thing. What do you need? Let's take it all the way up to a 10. In this case, as with my client, dad is completely emotionally unavailable. Dad is not engaging in any of the things that are important to her. By not engaging with her husband, by not engaging with her children, he is actively choosing not to engage in the fullness of who she is. And by sending a picture of his ticket, he is working on the assumption that his needs trump everything. And that in fact, there are no boundaries, there are no limitations to how she shows up for herself or not, that he can cross. And essentially he is saying all bets are off. Your needs, your desires, your emotionality, your longing is not the leading factor here. I am. And truthfully, where is the change going to come from, and where does the responsibility lie for this client when it comes to how she shows up for herself. It's hers. And likely, if she was raised by a father who, let's assume, has always been operating in that way, she may never have fully developed her sense of self and sovereignty and independence. And so it's really difficult to now advocate for herself and not feel responsible for the other's reaction to it. If you watched my second video, I spoke there about boundaries, and I spoke about how we feel responsible for how another thinks and behaves. So she may feel responsible for how her father will interpret her boundary, but she has every right to protect herself. She has every right to be sovereign. She does not need permission to make the right choice for her or her husband or her children. So independent of what she decides, I think my passion here lies in the redirection of focus and attention when it comes to decision making, away from the dominant energy of dad, or, as I talk to so often, the narcissist, or who it is that you are in relationship with who is showing up in a really entitled way. Let's bring it back to ourselves. Let's come back into our hearts, and let's give ourselves full permission to navigate life on our own terms, on what it is that we really need. And may I just say on this also, often when I start talking about coming into this sense of reclaiming what we need, I am met with a lot of resistance, because it can feel very at odds with what has been socially conditioned. And a lot of times the word selfish comes up. Isn't it selfish if I meet my needs? Well, let's just look at what is being heroed there, which would be selfless. So the idea that somebody is selfless, that there is a lack of self in the decision making, and that somehow, isn't she such a good girl? She is completely absent in her own life as she abdicates any needs of her own and prioritizes everybody else. I do not believe that that is how we live happy, balanced, and fulfilled lives. I actually think that that is a breeding ground for bitterness and resentment and overwhelm and exhaustion. So this is an invitation not to, not sort of a rally cry for conflict. What it is an invitation to deepen into love, into self-love, into the ability to care for and nurture and attend to and prioritize yourself. And that doesn't mean that we stop doing it for all the people around us. For sure, as women, we are experts at tuning into what everybody needs. We are, nobody is better resourced for knowing who needs what and how to provide it. What I am suggesting is that that is completely incomplete if it doesn't include yourself, because that is the birthplace of how we understand any of the attention, attunement, love, provision, and protection. So if this is a conversation that is resonating with you, if I am framing things in a way that is landing with you, then please like and subscribe. Know too that there is more information on my website, katiefeder.com. There are more blogs and articles, but there are also the details there to reach out to me directly, and perhaps there's the opportunity for us to work one-on-one or within more of the group work settings that I do, most of which actually happens online. So wherever you are in the world, it's possible. Thanks for watching.